On the night before my wedding, my sister slept with my fiancé, then had the nerve to wear white to my rehearsal dinner and call herself the real bride. So I played the video at the ceremony, then walked out with someone else. I was standing in the tiny bridal room of St. Andrew's Church in Savannah, Georgia, staring at my own reflection like I didn't recognize the woman in the mirror. My hair was done. My dress was on. My bouquet was already wilting a little in the warm air. Everything looked perfect on the outside. Inside, I felt like my ribs were folding in on themselves. Because 10 minutes earlier, 10 minutes before I was supposed to walk down the aisle, I had opened my fiancé's phone. I hadn't meant to. It buzzed on the counter while he was in the hallway with the groomsmen. I glanced at the screen and saw a preview of a text message from my older sister. "Last night was a mistake, but God, you know I can't stop thinking about it." I froze. Then I unlocked the phone with the passcode I'd memorized without him knowing. And there it was, the full thread, the videos, the photos, the timestamps from the night before. My fiancé, Mark, and my sister, Brianna, tangled up in a hotel room I'd booked for her so she wouldn't have to drive back to her Airbnb after the rehearsal dinner. The same rehearsal dinner where she'd had the nerve to show up in a tight white dress, smirking at me like it was some kind of inside joke. The same night she pulled me aside and told me, "You always rush things. Just slow down, okay? You don't want to marry the wrong person." The same night, I ignored the uneasy look on my maid of honor's face, because I kept trying to believe my sister could be selfish, but not that selfish. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. I felt my stomach turn like I was going to throw up right on the veil I'd spent a month choosing. The door opened and my mother peeked in. "Sweetheart, guests are seated. Pastor Lewis says 15 minutes. I must have looked like a ghost because she stepped inside and shut the door. "Honey, what's wrong? You're scaring me." I didn't tell her. I couldn't. Because within the mess of panic, fury, humiliation, and heartbreak, something else hit me like ice water. They weren't just hooking up. They were planning something. The messages, her messages, made that clear. And then, beneath all that, under the shock and the grief and the betrayal, something darker settled into place inside me. A kind of calm. A kind of clarity. Because I realized I wasn't going to fall apart. Not today, not on their terms. I closed the phone, picked up the USB drive I'd been carrying for nearly a month, ironically, something unrelated that I'd almost forgotten about, and slipped his phone into the pocket sewn into my gown. My mom was still hovering. "Do you need water? Do you need—" "I need," I said quietly, "everyone in that church to see something." She blinked. "See what?" I forced a steady breath out of my lungs. "The truth." I walked past her, out of the bridal room, down the hallway toward the sanctuary, the bouquet trembling a little in my hand. The closer I got, the more I could hear the chatter of guests, the string quartet warming up, the distant hum of whispered excitement. None of them knew, not yet. And as I paused outside the heavy wooden doors of the church, the doors I was supposed to walk through to marry a man who had been in my sister's bed the night before, I saw him through a crack between the hinges. Mark. Smiling, fixing his tie, talking to Brianna, whose hand was resting on his shoulder like she owned him. And that was when the idea fully clicked into place. Not just a reaction, not just an escape. A plan. A plan that would make everything they did to me burn. I adjusted my veil, took one deep breath, and whispered to myself, "Okay, let's begin." People always assume the older sister is the protector, the guide, the built-in best friend. That was never me and Brianna. From the time we were kids growing up in Macon, Georgia, she treated me like I was some annoying extra in the movie of her life. If I got a new backpack, she found a way to borrow it permanently. If I made a friend, she swooped in, got close to them, and edged me out. If I did something good, she made sure everyone knew she did it first. My parents always said, "It's just sibling rivalry. She's jealous you're so sweet-natured." But sweetness doesn't protect you from someone who enjoys taking things simply because she can. By high school, her pattern was obvious. Brianna didn't want things, she wanted reactions. She wanted to be envied, feared, or worshipped. And she especially wanted people who cared about me to care about her more. When she stole my senior year boyfriend, my first love, it was the first time I really saw through her. He confessed because he felt guilty. She confessed because she wanted to watch my face crack. But I was young then, and I thought distance would fix things. I went to college in Athens. She stayed home a year and then moved to Atlanta. We barely talked. Things calmed down. For a while, she acted normal. Civil, even. She'd send a birthday text, comment on a picture. Nothing warm, but nothing cruel. So when I got engaged to Mark, I made the mistake of thinking, maybe she's changed. Mark and I met at a trivia night in Savannah, and it was one of those slow, warm, steady relationships where nothing feels rushed or chaotic. He wasn't loud or flashy. He wasn't the type Brianna usually went for. He was gentle, smart, patient. I thought I'd finally picked someone Brianna-proof. The first time I brought him home, she looked him up and down like she was appraising a car someone else owned, but she wanted to take on a test drive. I laughed it off because that's what I'd done my whole life. Smooth out the edges, make excuses, pretend things weren't as sharp as they felt. But little moments kept stacking up. She'd pull him away from conversations with me by asking some overly personal question. She'd make comments like, "Wow, you really settled down, huh? I didn't think you wanted someone so stable." She told our mom that Mark and I were moving too fast, even though we'd been together nearly 4 years. Then, 3 months before the wedding, she volunteered to help with planning. My mom cried she was so happy. "Look at her trying to reconnect," she said. But I saw something in Brianna's face that I had seen all my life. That spark she got when she smelled blood in the water. Still, I convinced myself I was imagining it. I wanted so badly to believe my sister wasn't capable of blowing up the most important day of my life. But she kept inserting herself deeper. She flirted openly around Mark during cake tasting. She tried on white dresses just to see what looked good on camera. She kept insisting we should do a sibling dance at the wedding, which made zero sense. And she grew colder toward me the closer the wedding got. Mark said she was just insecure. My mom said she was trying. I said nothing because I didn't want drama. But the night of the rehearsal dinner changed everything. She walked in late, in white, tight white, like she wanted people to stare at her instead of me, and she called herself, jokingly but not joking at all, the real bride. Mark didn't laugh, he just looked uncomfortable. I told myself that meant something, that he wasn't pulled in by her. But after seeing that video thread in his phone, the time-stamped betrayal hours after that dinner, I realized something. She didn't just want attention. She wanted my life. And she was willing to take it piece by piece. In the weeks leading up to the wedding, the tension around Brianna kept building, but it was like only I could feel it. Everyone else acted like she was just being dramatic or playful, the way she'd always been. But I knew better. I could tell she was circling something. Me, Mark, the wedding, like a vulture waiting for the right moment to rip into it. She kept pushing boundaries that shouldn't have needed explanations. Like asking Mark to practice the first dance with her at my apartment when she just wanted to help choreograph. Or calling him at 11 p.m. the night before the cake tasting because she forgot a detail they supposedly talked about earlier, even though they hadn't been alone once. When I brought it up to Mark, he brushed it off. "She's your sister, maybe she's just excited," he said. It bothered me, but I let it go. I told myself it was wedding stress messing with my head. Then came the rehearsal dinner. I was already on edge from the endless last-minute logistics. My mom was nagging me to eat more. My bridesmaids were trying to keep things light. My nerves felt raw, like every sound was too loud. And then Brianna walked in. The room changed. People actually stopped mid-conversation. She was wearing this short, sparkly white dress that looked like it belonged on a club floor, not at someone else's rehearsal dinner. She strutted in like she owned the whole restaurant. "Oh my God," my maid of honor whispered. "What the hell is she doing?" My mom looked embarrassed but tried to diffuse it with, "Sweetie, maybe something off-white next time." Brianna just smirked and said, "Relax. It's not like I'm the one getting married tomorrow." Then she looked at me, right at me, and added, "Not yet anyway." Everyone laughed because everyone always laughs when she pushes the line. But the back of my neck went cold. Throughout the dinner, she hovered around Mark like she was magnetized to him. She touched his arm too much, leaned in too close, interrupted me mid-sentence to answer questions directed at me. Every time I looked at her, she was already looking at me back, like she was checking to see if I noticed. I noticed. After dessert, she took me aside near the bar. The restaurant was loud, so no one heard her when she leaned in and whispered, "You always rush into things you're not ready for. Just remember you can still walk away tomorrow." I felt my stomach flip. "Why would you say that?" She shrugged. Just trying to help you avoid a mistake." Then she gave Mark this long, slow look before walking away. I told myself she was being dramatic. I told myself she just wanted attention. I told myself Mark wasn't that stupid. But I couldn't shake the sense that something was moving under the surface, something I couldn't see yet. We finished the dinner, took pictures, hugged family, drove back to the Airbnb. Everyone was tired and buzzing with wedding excitement. I dropped Brianna off at the hotel I paid for. She hugged me for the first time in months, tight and overly sweet, and said, "Sleep well, little sis. Big day tomorrow." I didn't know it then, how could I? But she was already planning to ruin it, and Mark was going to help her. Not because he loved her, not because he loved me, but because something darker was happening between them, something I wouldn't understand until it was already too late. And the messed up part? The only reason I found out the truth the next morning was because he left his phone unattended for 10 seconds. 10 seconds? That's all it took to set everything in motion. When I say my hands went numb reading those messages, I mean it literally. I couldn't feel my fingers. My whole body felt like it was drifting outside itself, like I was watching someone else's wedding morning implode. The texts between Mark and Brianna weren't just gross or impulsive, they were strategic. The first thing that hit me was the video. Brianna had filmed it herself, like she wanted proof. Like she wanted to make sure she could use it later. The angle, the lighting, the way she kept talking loudly to make sure the audio caught, none of it was accidental. But the part that carved into me deeper than the betrayal itself were the messages that came after. The ones with time stamps from 3:47 a.m., 4:15 a.m., 5:02 a.m. hours after I dropped her off. Messages like, "Brianna, don't chicken out, I'm serious about tomorrow." Mark, "I don't know if this is a good idea." Brianna, "It's the best idea, trust me, she'll thank us someday." Mark, "She won't." Brianna, "She will once she realizes she doesn't deserve someone like you." That line right there. Like I wasn't good enough for him, a man who couldn't even stay loyal the night before our wedding. But what shattered me completely was the message I almost missed because it was buried under the video previews. Brianna, "I'll talk to the pastor in the morning, be ready." Talk to the pastor? Why? About what? My stomach twisted. My brain tried to connect dots I didn't even know existed. Then I found the message that changed everything about how I saw the situation. A voice memo, 12 seconds long. I replayed it 4 times because I couldn't believe it was real. Brianna's voice, low and smug. "Once I get him to delay the vows, that'll give you the opening. Just walk out, say you made a mistake, I'll handle her." Delay the vows, walk out, handle me. It was coordinated, a setup. They weren't just cheating, they were planning to humiliate me at the altar. Maybe he wouldn't have gone through with it. Maybe he would have panicked at the last second. But Brianna, she sounded thrilled. Like she'd been waiting her whole life for the perfect moment to push me off a cliff. It took me a full minute to breathe normally again. I kept scrolling, past more messages, past a second video, past photos that made me want to scream. And then I found something that froze my blood, a screenshot she sent him. It was of my medical records. My medical records. Stuff from when I was 19. Stuff that wasn't her business. Stuff she had no right to have. And the message she wrote under it, "Use this if she tries to make you look like the bad guy." I felt my throat close. My face went hot, my ears rang. She wasn't just trying to ruin my wedding. She was preparing to destroy my reputation if I fought back. I stared at the screen, shaking, trying to understand how deep this went. How long she'd been planning. Why Mark was going along with it. Then the door creaked and Mark stepped partially inside the bridal room. "Hey," he said softly, "everything okay? We're starting soon." He had no clue I knew. He thought I was still the naive, trusting younger sister. The girl who'd always cared too much and forgiven too easily. He thought he could walk out on me at the altar. That he and Brianna could script my humiliation and I'd just crumble the way they expected. And that's when the rage sharpened into something cold and exact. Because I finally realized this wasn't a moment to survive. It was a moment to flip. A moment to take control. A moment to make them choke on what they'd done. I looked at him in the doorway, swallowed the shaking, and said, "Yeah, everything's perfect." Because now I had the one thing they didn't expect me to ever have. A plan of my own. The moment Mark left the bridal room and the door clicked shut behind him, something in me settled. Not peace, no. Nothing peaceful about that morning. But I felt a strange, icy clarity slip into my veins, like my heartbeat finally synced into a steady drum. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to run. I wasn't going to give them the spectacle they'd planned. If they wanted a show, I'd give them one, just not the one they scripted. I locked the door and leaned against it, letting everything replay in my mind, the videos, the messages, the medical records screenshot, her voice saying, "I'll handle her." I wasn't going to let Brianna handle anything. The USB drive in my dress pocket felt heavier now, like it suddenly mattered. I'd originally planned to give it to the pastor later. It was a video tribute for my late father, something sweet and sentimental he could play during the reception. Funny how life shifts. Now I knew exactly what I needed to do with it. I pulled out my phone and texted my maid of honor, Kayla, 3 words that made her reply instantly. Me, can you come? Kayla, on my way, are you okay? Me. Just hurry. 30 seconds later she was knocking softly. I let her in and she immediately gasped when she saw my face. You look like you're about to pass out. What happened? What's going on? I handed her Mark's phone and said, just read. She went pale, she scrolled. Her mouth dropped open. She let out this low whispering, oh my God, oh my God. Then she looked at me with a kind of anger I'd never seen in her. You are not walking down that aisle. I shook my head. No, I'm walking, but not to marry him. Confusion flickered across her face before she saw the expression in my eyes and froze. Okay, tell me. I told her the plan, quietly, efficiently, calmly, and with every detail her expression sharpened from shock to fury to something almost wicked. She said, I'll handle the pastor. I'll make sure the right USB gets plugged in. I nodded. Make sure he plays it right after the walk-in music starts. She said, don't worry about your mom, I'll be next to her. I said, I'm not doing this to embarrass her, I just need the truth out. She said, your sister did this. Not you. When we finished, she grabbed my shoulders. Are you sure you're strong enough for this? I'm not strong, I said. I'm pissed. Kayla smirked. Good, let's burn them then. She slipped out the door and I stood there alone again, breathing slow, feeling that cold clarity settle deeper. My hands were steady now. My chest wasn't tight. My vision wasn't foggy. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the fuse. I packed the USB into a small envelope and labeled it Ceremony Intro per bride's request. No one would question it. No one ever questions a bride on her wedding day. I touched up my makeup, not to look good but to look composed, because nothing would infuriate Brianna more than me not falling apart. Then I took a deep breath and walked toward the sanctuary. The doors were closed, but I could hear the guests. The music, the soft laughter, the clueless excitement of people who had no idea what was coming. I pulled the veil forward, hiding my expression. And right before I motioned for the coordinator to open the doors, I saw Brianna peeking from the front row, already glowing with that smug satisfaction she got whenever she thought she'd won. She had no idea the ground was about to break open beneath her feet. No idea that I was about to hijack the wedding she tried to destroy. No idea that the real plan, the one she never saw coming, was only seconds from unfolding. The coordinator opened the doors, and that familiar wave of heat, music, and faces turned toward me. The string quartet began the soft intro of the song I'd chosen months ago, back when I still believed this walk meant something warm and hopeful. But the most important detail wasn't the faces or the music. It was the giant projection screen behind the altar, the one the pastor usually used for scripture slides or welcome messages. Today it was already lowered, already lit, already waiting. Kayla had done her part. I stepped into the aisle and every person in the sanctuary stood. Every pair of eyes settled on me. My mother wiped a tear. My uncle raised his phone to record. People whispered, she's beautiful, and here she comes, and what a perfect bride. Meanwhile, Mark was smiling at me with that gentle, reassuring expression he always used when he wanted me to trust him. That expression I now realized was fake. Practiced. His version of camouflage. And next to him, in the front row, Brianna was glowing like the sun. She looked like the wedding was for her. She looked like she was ready to watch me crumble. But then something happened she didn't expect. Something that made her smile falter, just a hair, just enough. I smiled back. Not a shaky smile, not a devastated smile. A calm, level, steady smile. Her eyes flickered with confusion. I kept walking, my bouquet held tight, my gown trailing behind me like nothing was wrong. But inside me, the countdown had already started. 10 more steps. 8, 6. I reached the front, stopping exactly where the aisle ended and the polished wooden stage began. Mark reached out a hand for me to step up. I didn't take it. Instead, I took half a step back. Now there was distance between us, physical, symbolic, intentional. Mark blinked in confusion. "Baby, come up." I didn't move. The pastor cleared his throat. "Are you all right?" I nodded slowly. "I just think before anything begins, everyone should see something." The pastor looked startled. "What something?" I turned just enough to catch Kayla's eye. She nodded subtly, hand already near the laptop at the projector table. This was the moment. But here's the twist I didn't see coming, not until the exact second it happened. As Kayla clicked the file, Brianna shot up from her seat and screamed, "Don't play that!" The entire church went dead silent. My mother gasped. Mark's face drained pale. Guests shifted and murmured. Phones came out. Everyone stared. And Brianna, my always perfect, always calculated older sister, was suddenly shaking, panicked, exposed. Like she already knew what was on that screen because she had planned something even worse. Something she didn't want them to see. For one split, electric moment, everything froze. Then the projector lit up white. But what appeared wasn't the footage of her and Mark. Not yet. Because the file that automatically started playing was the last one I expected. It wasn't the video from Mark's phone. It wasn't anything I'd put on the USB. It was a recording of Brianna, sitting in her car, talking to someone off camera, laughing, saying, "I don't even need him to leave her at the altar. She's going to explode on her own. All I need is that old medical record leak. One whisper and she'll fall apart. She's so predictable." My blood went cold. Kayla looked at me in shock. This wasn't the file she queued. And then it hit me. This wasn't my video. This was a video Brianna had recorded herself. A video she must have accidentally uploaded onto the USB drive when she'd used my laptop weeks ago to help with wedding details. A video she never meant for anyone to see. The church erupted, gasps, whispers, people covering their mouths. And Brianna, she wasn't glowing anymore. She was shaking, because her own backup plan, her real one, had just detonated in her face. And this wasn't even the worst of it. Not yet. The room was buzzing like a hive, shocked voices, whispers, people shifting in their seats. Every eye in the church was locked onto the projection screen or on Brianna, who looked like she'd been caught stealing oxygen. Her face was white, her hands were shaking. And Mark looked at her the way a person looks at a fire they accidentally started. But I wasn't done, not even close. Kayla clicked to pause the video, and for a moment everything froze again. The pastor was stammering, my mother looked sick, and Brianna's eyes were darting around like she was searching for an exit that didn't exist. Finally, she snapped. "This is out of context," she yelled. This is not what it looks like." "It looks," I said quietly, "like you've been planning this for a long time." Her mouth opened, but I cut her off. "You weren't just trying to break us up. You weren't just trying to sleep with him. You were trying to destroy me." Her face twisted into something ugly, something I'd seen flashes of over the years but never fully. A cornered animal. A mean one. "You've always been dramatic," she spat. "Not everything is about you." "Then explain," I said, "why you had my medical records." That was the moment the color drained completely out of her face. Not fear, rage, pure, venomous rage. "You don't get it," she snapped. "You never get anything. You walk around with your stable little life and your boring little fiancé and your stupid soft voice acting like you earned it. But everything you only have because I didn't want it first." There it was, the truth, raw and vile and exactly what I had always known under the surface. But she wasn't finished. She stepped forward, her voice low and shaking with anger. "When Dad died, Mom funneled everything into you. Attention, sympathy, money, opportunities. You got to be the fragile one, the precious one, and I got to be the strong one. The one who didn't need anything, the one who got ignored." I stared at her. "You were 24, I was 17. "Exactly," she snapped. "You were the easy one to love." The church went silent, dead silent. She kept going, her voice rising, her mask gone. "Do you know what it's like to watch the entire family worship someone who didn't do a damn thing to deserve it? Do you know what it's like to realize the only way you'll ever get attention is by taking what she loves? I took your boyfriends because it was the only time anyone looked at me. I ruined your friendships because that's the only time they cared what I did. You don't get it. I was invisible unless I was stepping on you. My mother gasped, putting a hand over her mouth. But Brianna didn't stop. You think I wanted Mark, she laughed bitterly. I don't want him, he's not even my type, but he wanted you, and I was so goddamn tired of watching you get things you didn't earn. So yeah, I slept with him. Yeah, I planned to tank your wedding. I wanted to watch you fall apart in front of everyone because that's the only time anyone notices I exist. Every word hit me like ice water, not because it hurt, but because it finally made sense. Her cruelty, her sabotage, her obsession with taking anything I cared about. She didn't want Mark, she didn't want my wedding, she didn't want my life, she wanted one thing, my collapse. Because it made her feel powerful, because it made her feel seen, because my pain was the only thing that ever made her feel like she mattered. There was no sadness in her voice, no regret, no desperation, just envy and spite, and a bottomless, rotting need to consume what wasn't hers. My heart didn't break hearing the truth. It hardened. Because now I finally understood exactly what kind of person my sister had always been. And I knew exactly how to end this. After Brianna finished her rant, after she finally ripped off the mask she'd worn our entire lives, the church felt like it was holding its breath. No one moved, no one spoke. It was the kind of silence you only hear after a car crash, when everyone's waiting to see who climbs out alive. I stepped forward, lifted the microphone off its stand, and said in a steady voice, "Play the next video." Brianna screamed, "No, turn it off," and lunged toward the projector table, but Kayla blocked her with this terrifying level of calm, like she'd been waiting her whole life for this moment. The screen lit up again. This time it was the video from Mark's phone, the hotel room, the timestamp, the kissing, the laughing, Brianna aiming the camera at herself like she was recording a casting tape. Mark's voice saying, "What are we doing?" Her voice replying, ending her delusions. A few people gasped. Someone whispered, "Jesus Christ." My mother sobbed into her hands. Mark stepped backward like the air had been punched out of his lungs. He looked at the screen, then at Brianna, then at me, as if realizing the nightmare he helped create had finally turned on him. "Baby, I'm so sorry," he said, reaching toward me. "This was a mistake, she pressured me, I was drunk, let's just talk." I stepped away from him. Not dramatically, just cleanly. "No," I said. "We're done," he blinked fast, panicked. "We can fix this. You cheated on me the night before our wedding," I said quietly, "and you were going to let her humiliate me in front of everyone." "I wasn't," she said, "she told me." "She didn't force you," I cut in. "You participated, you planned. You thought you were doing something noble by walking away at the altar instead of telling me the truth." Mark opened his mouth again, but I didn't care anymore. About him, about explanations, about the man I thought he was. That version of him didn't exist. I turned to the guests. "My sister and my fiancé betrayed me," I said. "Not privately, not accidentally, intentionally, and they tried to script the moment I would shatter, but I'm not breaking for them. Not today." People murmured in support. A few clapped softly. My uncle muttered, "Good for her." Even the pastor looked horrified on my behalf. As for Brianna, she was shaking so hard her earrings rattled. She spit out, "You think this makes you strong? You think anyone's on your side? They'll forget this in a week." I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "Maybe, but you'll remember it forever." And then came the final twist of the morning, the part I hadn't told anyone. Not even Kayla. I turned toward the back of the church and said, "You can come in now." The doors opened. And Eli, my close friend from college, the only person I truly trusted aside from Kayla, the person Brianna always accused me of hiding something with, walked down the aisle. Not romantically, not dramatically, just solid, dependable, unshakable. He walked straight to me, offered his arm, and said, loud enough for the whole church to hear, "You don't have to walk out alone." And I didn't. I walked out of that church with my head high, my dress trailing behind me, and the two people who truly loved me, Kayla and Eli, flanking me like bookends. Behind me, Brianna screamed my name. Mark begged, my mother cried, guests whispered, but I kept walking. Outside, the sun hit my face, warm, clean, real, and for the first time that day, I felt like I could breathe. I didn't get the wedding I planned. I didn't get the marriage I expected. But I got something better, my freedom, my dignity, my truth. And the kicker, 3 days later when I went to return the dress to the boutique, still tagged, still pristine, the owner looked at me and said, You know, most brides bring back stains. You brought back a story. I just smiled. Yeah, I said, and I think I'm finally done letting other people write it.